Hi, everybody. It is 10 o'clock Central Time in Texas, right around 5 o'clock in Hawaii. And we are having a conversation today about an unexpected news story for so many. It's a story that has quickly developed over the last several days, and we now know it as one of the deadliest wildfires in American history, the fire that took place in Maui. Pamela Reader is with us. She's a mom and she's a resident of Maui. And she experienced this entire event with her family. And we're lucky enough to talk to her today to get some actual on the ground perspective as to what transpired. And Pamela, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. How did you first come to live in Maui?
So I moved here 22 years ago. I moved here with my then boyfriend, who's now my husband, Keenan, and his sister, Carla. And we were all educators at the time. And his mom found an ad in the New York Times calling for our specific areas. So we were young. We thought, well, let's just go for a year. And we moved actually right into Lahaina town. The three of us shared a house together and right on Wainee Street, which is the road parallel of Front Street, the main hub of the town. And we lived there, and we would go back to New York every summer, and we just kind of would start saying, we'll stay one more year, and 1 year turned into 22. And so now we have two kids, and we have grown a lot of roots here, and this is home.
What was it about Maui that made you stay and raise a family there?
It really is like a small town. A lot of people from all over the world bring a lot of just unique perspectives. It's a real tight knit community, which I think you're going to really see in the coming months and years here, and just really a quiet way of life. We've been very blessed on Maui, honestly, but we are able to enjoy our life, I think, spend quality time with our kids, and we're not in a hustle and bustle, although we do work hard, but it's just still a beautiful way to live.
I think many of us probably dream of living in Hawaii someday. I was a little girl, long time. I mean, it's been decades since I've been to Maui.
Hmm.
And that dream of living in Hawaii and the beauty of Hawaii, though, is so pervasive. Can you talk to us a little bit about Lahaina? Can you describe the town to us and where you were living?
Sure. So Front Street Lahaina is the main strip, I guess you could say. It's a historic town. It was once the capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom. And so there's a lot of history here. It's very quaint. It's ocean front, so the front street is basically on the ocean. Tons of restaurants, a lot of art galleries, little shops. It's just really cute. We live in an area known as Shark Pit, which is residential, and it's just south of the town part. So we used to ride our bikes to town or drive a golf cart and go out and hang out in town. My girls are getting old enough where they would just go down and cruise and get ice cream and go shopping with their friends. So,
And did you know your neighbors, or is your community, do people know each other by their first names?
oh yeah, we were very tight knit community. It's really a beach community, so we would meet every night that we could. Most people, there's a lot of people that did it every night. I wish we did it every night, but for sunset, and that was a big congregating place, was the beach for us. We spent many holidays with our neighbors. Every year on Christmas Eve, we all, without if no matter where we were in our houses, we'd all go for sunset and take a big group photo, just with our neighbors. And we've had a couple things happen before. We had like different storms, different things, and everyone just rallies together. But I mean, nothing that even scratches the surface of what we've all just been through. But
So take me to the beginning of last week, because at the
Mhm.
beginning of last week, one of the things that we were looking at Smarter News is we were actually going to get an updated forecast for hurricane season.
Mm.
And we knew of, Hurricane Dora. We knew that there were some, storms to watch. But where you were living in Maui at the time, what were some of the the news? Was it about fires that were burning? And is that common for this time of year?
So, fires are probably a little like we get brush fires a little bit. It can be very dry. This is our dry part of the year where it's just we don't get a lot of rain. It's warmer than usual. The sun can be hot, but it's and we actually were in New York until August 3rd. And so when we were flying in, we saw how dry it was. But we had heard about Hurricane Dora. We were not concerned. It was 800 miles south of the Hawaiian island chain. So we went to bed not even too concerned. They just said it could be a higher wind event, but nothing to prepare for. So that was kind of it. We went to bed, and actually the day
And that was
before we had,
was that Monday night, Pam, when you were saying you
so
went to bed, not really thinking about it?
yeah, I guess it was Monday night that when we went to bed, because earlier in Monday, we had seen some friends that one of them works in a boat and she wasn't supposed to go. And she said that they canceled because of the wind in the ocean. So I was like, oh, and I just kind of thought it was over then, you know? But
Hmm.
then when we went to bed Monday night, the winds picked up really high, like howling crazy, huge gusts. And then it took the power out, which that's not too uncommon for our power to go out. Usually they get it back up pretty quickly though. But we basically woke up with no power. And so we really didn't know what was kind of going on beyond where we were. And there was very limited cell service. We would get a text here and there, or like all of a sudden you'd get like 20 texts, but it was really crazy. And then the wind was just all day, and it was probably the worst we've ever had. We started getting broken windows, and then we started seeing on the street there was stuff all over the place. And then my sister-in-law came over, Carla, who we had moved here with, and she lives a few blocks away, and she said they just had gone around, and she said there was like solar panels in the street and things like that. So we knew it was bigger than we normally would deal with. And but we were home hunkering down playing games, and we had a generator we put on for our fridge and stuff like that. So we were just dealing with it really. And then we noticed in the afternoon a little fire up, like from my house you could see the hill that goes up into the mountains. That's Lahaina Road, and we could see a fire kind of started up there, and we were keeping an eye on it. And it didn't seem so bad at first, so we kind of would go back to doing what we were doing, and then it looked like it was growing, and then we saw black smoke, which was alarming. And then all of a sudden you just start seeing a lot more people out in the street milling around, and we noticed some people leaving. And so we decided at that point to just let's pack our cars. And at this point the wind is still howling really bad and stuff. So my sister-in-law ran home to get stuff from her house, and she came back, and it was pretty evident the fire was growing. We packed stuff for a few days. I mean, I never in a million years didn't think we'd be going home. So we did have stuff with us, just not a lot of stuff. And then we were upstairs looking at the fire again, and it was getting scary. And then someone had mentioned some buildings that were on fire, which I'm a realtor now, and I knew exactly which house it was, and it was my clients who I adore, and they just built the house a year ago. And I was like, this is really happening. Like, it was crazy. And so all of a sudden, a Maui County lifeguard that we're friends with came up on a bicycle, and he was covered in soot. And we hadn't seen him or spoke to him all day. And he just comes running in the house, says it's time to go. And apparently he'd been going around the neighborhood telling everybody. And so we just got the kids in the car. Carla went in her car with her kids. I went in mine. My husband got in his car, and we all kind of set a place to go. And we left a little separately. And then we live right at, it's like a cul-de-sac kind of, but there's a gate, and the gate opens onto Front Street. So we are actually really lucky because we were able to just scoot right onto Front Street rather than drive through the neighborhood, because the exit out of the neighborhood, there was already a fire, I came to learn. So we were able to get on Front Street and go south. and there was people walking, people moving, there was homeless people asking to get in cars. I saw a man I know who's a parent at the school my kids attend, who apparently, I didn't realize this, he's the manager at Puamano, which is a beautiful oceanfront community down the road from us, and he was directing traffic. And so we all got south, and then we made it up to the bypass, which is the road that looks down onto Lahaina. And we found my husband finally, which was scary for a minute. And then we were sitting in the car's shaking because the wind's so bad. And we just watched Lahaina burn, and it was surreal. I mean, you still hold out hope that it jumped your house. Um, and then it was where we knew we couldn't stay there all night. And so a dear friend of mine owns a bed and breakfast in Launiopoko, which is still a little bit further south and further up the mountain. And I was a little worried about going there because it's in the mountain and a little dry, but we figured right now it was safe. So they didn't know we were coming, and we just showed up, and they gave us a room, and my daughters went to sleep as much as they could without being petrified. And my husband and I kind of kept watch with the owner of the bed and breakfast. And there got to a point around 4 a.m. where we said we need to go move on again before. I was most worried about getting stuck in the road and the fire coming at us. And so we left, and there was nobody on the road at that point. And we went to Ma'alaya and went to some friend's store, Boss Frogs, that they took us in. They all escaped Lahaina too. And then from there, we ended up going to my friend's parents' house. And that's where we stayed for the next few days in Wailuku.
Wow. So a few questions just come up naturally listening to that story. I mean, that must have been incredibly frightening, Pam. How frightening was it?
It was it was very frightening. When we
Yeah.
finally left, we saw flames that we knew were probably on Shaw Street, which is the main street to turn into to get into our neighborhood. So we knew it was close. Um, you know, I think in hindsight, I didn't, I think we got out just in time because we've since learned about all these people perishing in their cars, which is what I was the most fearful of. So I think I've almost had more fear after it's over, realizing what could have happened. And then my husband had driven out separately from me, knowing that he could have been, it was just all the things I was worst case scenarioing, after the fact. But it was as scary as you could imagine.
What was the time, if you could estimate it, between, seeing that fire on the hill and suddenly getting this soot-covered lifeguard to come into your house and say, "It's time to go"? What would be the time period between those two things?
I mean, I think it was just like we probably first saw the fire maybe around 3 something, and then we probably left the house about 5:30.
Oh my
But the
gosh.
fire grew, got small. I mean, it happened really quickly. Um, and
Was
like
there
it
any
went from not too big to all of a sudden like black smoke everywhere.
was there any other warning besides the lifeguard coming in, or
No,
anything on your phone or a
no,
siren or anything like that?
no. One of my neighbors told me he got a shelter in place warning at some point that afternoon. And at that point, we were actually had it in our head that we were sheltering in place because we got notified by just people on the street that all the roads were gridlocked out of town and that we couldn't go north because of the fire and we couldn't go south because of traffic. So we felt a little trapped. And so we had just said, okay, we're just going to wait it out, sort of a thing. But there was no sirens, there was no warning, no cops, no evacuation. When we were driving out, there were cops directing traffic. I personally do think it happened so fast that it, you know, I, I think something should have been warning, but it did happen extraordinarily fast too. So I don't know. I'd like them to figure out what happened though.
Um, have you seen any photos of your house?
Yes,
What's the
we have
current
seen.
situation of your can you describe that to us? What's the current situation on your street?
So it took about a day for us to get confirmation via picture that our house was gone. We have learned all of our dear friends in our neighborhood's houses are gone. At least, I mean, everyone except I think there's about 4 or 5 houses standing in the whole neighborhood. Um, so we had one photo. We zoomed in on my we saw we had a pandemic pool in our backyard. It was like an above ground pool we were getting ready to get rid of. We could see that in the backyard. The pool was gone, but the circle, um, and we knew we had a very distinctive house. It was one of the larger houses in the neighborhood and had an orange tile roof, and we could see the orange tiles all over, and we knew it was our house. And then a few days later, somebody had been in the neighborhood. Like, a lot of people knew cops and knew different people that were allowed in, and we got a photo up close. So it's not there. So we were really wanting to go and see, and now we're just letting we want them to do what they got to do, and then we'll come back.
Well, I want to invite in your husband and your kids as well because I know they're
Sure.
standing by. I'm curious before I do though, Pam, just as a mom. I mean, this experience for anyone, but a mother with your children,
Mm-hmm.
that is just something that, like you said, it probably gets scarier upon reflection because in the
Oh,
moment you have your kids. Um, I mean, how has that been with them?
they have been doing great, all things considered. We were with people we consider family, and so that had really helped. They, they know the severity of what's going on. They have really stepped up. They want to do volunteer things. They're this is their home. This is all they know, and it's gone. Luckily, our school that we've been very involved in, Maui Prep, since the school started 17 years ago, my husband's a founding faculty. So that school is fine, and they're going to be starting, and it's the only school in West Maui that's going to open. So that will be a sense of normalcy for them, which we're looking forward to. Although I don't think any of us can wrap our brains around school actually starting, but it's
Mhm.
supposed to start next week. And they're going to take in as many kids as they can. It's a private school, so they're working with all the people for that. But it's really scary, but you just count your blessings. And we're we have been absolutely overwhelmed with people reaching out to us from all aspects of our life. I mean, childhood friends I haven't seen in 30 plus years, parents of my friends. I mean, just so many people that have wanted to do stuff for us. And, we have been very fortunate. We have good insurance, thank goodness, and we're alive and safe. And we're in a rental right now for a week, and we have a place to go on the west side when it opens up eventually. So we're very fortunate. We recognize that. We've been talking a lot about that as a family, and just, you know, paying it forward when the time comes, really, and just acknowledging how this feels right now, and making sure that we can pass on the aloha when the time comes. So,
We can have Keenan and
yeah,
Ellie and Kaia come in as well, and
yeah.
I have a couple more
Here, guys,
questions
you
for you
can come in.
guys here. Kaia and Ellie, I'd love to hear from you both about, what you saw and what it was like for you, because I can't imagine none of us really on the outside can imagine what this was like. And it's really valuable for us because from our point of view, we're just getting flooded with videos and social media, and we're not able to really talk to anyone. So this is such an incredibly invaluable experience. So Kaia, why don't you tell me, what kind of stands out most to you of the day that you all had to evacuate? What did you see? Can you just kind of describe to our audience what that was like for you?
There was just a lot of black smoke, and it kind of just looked, I don't know, like very apocalyptic, and it was very scary. But I had like my cousins there, my family there, so I knew that they were okay, and that was good. And I had my cat with us, so that's just like that's all I really cared about.
Ellie, what was it like for you? What do you remember most seeing?
I remember right before we left, I saw flames come up from a far distance, and that kind of just like scared me a lot. That like it was time to go.
Keenan, because it sounds like you two were separated. Did you take separate vehicles out of the neighborhood and then reunite later on the hill?
Yes, Jenna, but we were just a few cars separated. At that time, it was clear we needed to leave immediately. I was securing the house with the high winds. Prior to that, watching the fire and figuring we were going to be okay, that the firemen were going to be able to hold the line. So I did not have any time to prepare to evacuate. My wife threw a few things in the bag, and she had, after our friend came and told us to leave, she left immediately, and I just stayed to secure a couple of doors, figuring we'd be back, and be able to come in. But once they left, honestly, I was 45 seconds behind them. It was time to go, and thank God I did. It came fast. It came extraordinarily fast.
Have you been in touch with all of your neighbors, Keenan? Did everybody get out? Are you still waiting to hear from some friends and neighbors in the community?
Um, People in our neighborhood, I've heard, have gotten out, but I'm well aware of friends who have lost family members and people who aren't confirmed but have not yet appeared at one of the shelters. So we're expecting loss to continue to rise, and it's not over yet.
Pam, that's one thing that Keenan brings up that we didn't get a chance really to talk about, which is were fire trucks around? I mean, were firefighters in the neighborhood? Were they on the hill? I don't even know how big the fire force would be to fight this sort of a fire, but were they actively engaging the flames? Is that something you saw when you were evacuating or even before?
They were
Pam
fighting
or
it all
Keenan?
day long.
Yeah.
These people are heroes. I want to make that abundantly clear. Maui County firefighters, this is not the first time they've saved communities on the west side. They were clearly around, just completely overwhelmed. Again, it just moved so fast. But I want to make it abundantly clear that these people put themselves in harm's way. We've heard of at least 3 fire trucks burnt and ruined. They fought this thing as hard as they possibly could, just completely overwhelmed by the magnitude of the flames due to the high winds, so fast and so dry.
And many of them lost their own homes while fighting the fire. They knew where they lived. They knew it was near there. And then we heard, some stuff you don't know what's rumor and what's not. But we have heard that they at one point ran out of water. And that's, so a lot of this stuff we need to see what was done and what could be done differently. So that part is scary to think about with the infrastructure, but supposedly that's what a firefighter had told one of my friends.
And we are a small town. We don't have a police force of several hundred. There's only so much personnel in a small town that can do so much. And again, they were evident. They were out there doing everything they could, just were completely limited in what they could do.
Keenan, what about the response so far? I mean, I know you guys are a little bit removed from Lahaina right now, but what are you hearing about the response to try to look in the search area that they're searching right now? I know there's been a lot of different numbers of fatalities, of homes lost, of businesses lost. But in general, can you give us a sense from the community how people are feeling about the response from the local government and also beyond?
I know it's all over the spectrum. There are many people upset that they can't get back in to see their homes. However, I know my family vastly supports the National Guard, the police, the first responders that are in there, and we're told to stay away. We're content staying away. as hard as it is to feel helpless, that we want to do more, the best thing we can do is stay away right now and let the first responders do their job. I'm hearing food has come in, basic immediate disaster supplies have come in. I know our school, Maui Preparatory Academy, stepped up to be an emergency shelter, and they had a lot of resources to give out the last 48 hours for anyone who wanted it. But the real key was just to bus people out of town. West Maui is not a place to be in. If you're choosing to stay, you're staying in your home to keep it protected, and you're doing so without power and much communication whatsoever. So I know there are supplies there for people who can get to the shelters. It is coming in droves. The support is really been amazing, with people taking boats in, doing anything they possibly could. The real challenge is going to be the long-term sustainability of this effort. We don't know where construction workers are going to go to get this work done. We're an island. There was no housing to begin with. We were in a housing crisis. So the steps to rebuilding is going to take a lot of action and a lot of need, and we hope people continue to support the Maui and Lahaina community, and don't forget about us.
Pam, that's something that's come up. I've seen the governor speak about it, about a concern already in the community that some people are going to come from the outside and buy the land, even as that's already a concern in the community because of the devastation and also the money that would be needed to rebuild. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I'm sure our audience will be hearing that about concern about, well, what's going to happen to this very special piece of land in Maui, this very special area. Why is there anxiety about that, and why would the governor feel the need to address that?
There's been some stuff online that people have been warning that FEMA don't register with them because FEMA is going to take your land. And they did this apparently where California wildfires were. And someone said that they could do it by eminent domain, that they're going to deem it unbuildable, and then they're going to come in and build all of these hotels. I think tourism is a very big deal on Maui. It's our biggest commodity, and we live in the most beautiful place in the world. So I think people are just fearful that because there was a lot of locals that houses burned, that they're going to get driven out. And I think it's stemming from fear. I'm really hopeful that that's not a real concern. We have insurance. We plan on just rebuilding our house when the time comes and we're able to. And I know a lot of our neighbors are in the same boat. I think Lahaina is a historic landmark. I hope that comes into consideration. I don't see them trying to build big skyscrapers, but that is something out there. There's a lot of just conspiracies going on right now, and I hope that someone just puts it to bed. But it's scary
a
to think about.
Community, so it's the fear is that they're not going to be able to rebuild the history, the culture. The hub of Hawaiian culture is a big piece of that is Lahaina with the deep history. A lot of our buildings are very, very old, particularly along Front Street, and very, very historic. And building codes have changed. So what Lahaina looks like today, we hope to see it come back in a way that represents and respects the Hawaiian culture and the history of this special place without turning it into something different.
Yeah. Just this past weekend, we were supposed to have a hula festival under the historic banyan tree, and Kaia was going to be dancing in it. And her hula teacher's family has been in Lahaina for hundreds of years, and all these beautiful songs about these places that are now burnt down, we were going to be dancing to songs about them. So it's pretty, so I think nobody wants to see that go away. We want to be able to dance those hula festivals under the banyan tree again. And so, I think there's fear because I think everything's gone. It just feels so precarious, and we're so exposed now to that. And I'm holding out hope that it's just a bunch of online garbage, honestly. So
Well, I can tell you as someone who makes her career looking through online garbage when it comes to the news, it can be hard to sort through. And I
Right,
can't imagine that sort of anxiety upon everything else that people are thinking about, which is
right,
getting water and figuring out a place to live and making sure that their families are taken care of. So that was really good perspective, though, because that may not be the similar sort of anxiety that comes to other communities that have
right.
dealt with this. And it's unique to this. Keenan and Pam and Ellie and Kai, all of you are incredible. You're so clear and you're calm. And this is a life-changing event. Where is your strength coming from? Because it is to witness this is we're so grateful to have this sort of clarity. But how are you feeling inside? Like, how are you able to so clearly speak about this?
The Reader family is built on love, and we are a resilient crew. We talk to our kids constantly, probably nightly at the dinner table, how blessed we are to be able to live in such a community as Lahaina. Blessed to have each other all of the time. And I think we're just basically giving strength off of our family's closeness, our values, and the fact that so many people are reaching out to us. In the end, we feel we're the fortunate ones. We got out alive. Yes, we lost everything. I think I had a few pairs of clothes and a pair of underwear, but that everything else is going to be able to be replaced. It's just going to take time. And we're fortunate someday we'll have a story to tell.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who aren't so lucky. So we give strength in our family and strength knowing that we're one of the fortunate ones.
We probably are a little in shock too. We're
Yeah.
still reeling from it, Keenan and I are very organized, and we just we got in touch with our insurance right away, which did make us feel better, at least that we were going to be okay at the beginning. Because it feels so scary to think you have nothing left and all your life, everything was about our house. Keenan was always working on our house, and to think it was just gone. So knowing that we have good insurance, we're going to be okay, at least was a calming feeling, where I know so many people that have lost everything and their livelihoods. We have people that lost their houses, and we just learned of a friends that lost their house and both their businesses, her hair salon and his bike shop. So it's like we know we're lucky. And so, and like Keenan said, we've always felt so blessed to live on Maui. We've always felt so blessed to live in Lahaina, to be a part of the Maui prep community, and to see that come together. So we just want to help those around us too, and come back stronger. I do think Maui is very unique in that people always feel lucky to be here. And I think that drives a lot of this. I mean, we have friends that are off island, and all they were trying to do is get back to Maui, which you would think people were trying to leave Maui, but they just want to come here and be around us and each other to help. And so
I think we also have faith in the federal government. I feel lucky to live in the United States, and I know that the U.S. federal government is not going to forget about us and come in, and we're going to have to remove this debris very quickly. It is not going to be able to be done by individual contractors and construction people. We need the federal government in here to basically continue to remove, demolish the town and remove all the debris. Find a way for construction workers to get into town. There's going to be nowhere for them to live, whether it be occupying hotels, cruise ships off the coast. We need to think big to get this done fast. This is a little different than parts of California where people can come all over. There literally will be nowhere for this type of help to come in. Just when a hotel has been built in our time here, it's inundated the rental market, where I've had to see many people leave the island just because they couldn't find housing when a hotel was built. So now how are we going to build all this? Is going to take take really the support of the U.S. federal government.
Well, you're going to be part of something historic on the other side of it. So we
Yeah.
talked about the historic nature of the wildfire, but now you're going to be part of rebuilding the next chapter for Lahaina, and that will be important as well. And you'll be able to have a role in that, which I hope at this time is optimistic that you're going to be able to be part of it. A family that loves it so much. As we wrap up here, I'm curious if you all could share one thing. If you would like another family, no matter where they are in the world, that's hearing this interview, to know, one thing about the past week or one thing about where you live, that you feel is special, that you'd like us to know about or think about, not only today but in the coming weeks. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I just think everyone should stay grateful and just keep giving, like, to people, because if something like this happened to you, you would want people to be there for you, and so you should be there for other people and just to stay grateful.
Mm-hmm. Keenan, what are your thoughts? You got school opening up in a couple days. I can imagine doing that too.
Well, I think that's a big one. This has not only impacted those of us who lost their homes, but the thousands of kids who are supposed to start school, not only in the West Side community, now in the Central community. So my thoughts and prayers would be for people to support kids getting back into school. I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen. I know my private school has started a fund to try and get as many people, Maui Prep Disaster Fund. So I'm hoping we can take people in. We're going to need other schools to take people in, but we have to create a sense of normalcy for the kids out there, and whatever anyone can do to support the kids. The Hawaii Community Foundation, the Maui United Way, Maui Food Bank are going to be some long-standing community resources that I believe will be able to offer direct support to the kids in particular. So my heart goes out to the kids.
Mom or Ellie, Ellie, I'm not going to forget you, but I'm also not going to put pressure on you. Would you like to share anything, Ellie, or would you like your mom to go next?
I'll share. I just think that it's important that we're all our community during this time and that everybody's there to support each other. And I know it's not just us who are going through this, it's a lot of people, and I think we should all just support each other and help each other out.
It's a really great thought. Pam, what would you like people to know?
Well, one, I think everyone needs to check their insurance policies and make sure they are well insured, because that is going to save our family. But I also just think, like I mentioned earlier, Maui and Lahaina is a very special place for many people, not just the people that live here. And I think we're going to need continued ongoing support. It sounds like we have enough stuff now, like with supplies. So if you can give, to those organizations that we mentioned, like we said, Maui Prep is the only school that's going to be able to open in West Maui, and they do have that disaster fund. So, there's teachers and faculty and students in our community that lost their homes too. So we have to stay open, and we're going to need that in order to do so, and to be able to give some kids the normalcy, like Keenan said. So I think just moving forward is just really making sure people continue to support us, and when there's a call to action, to come and do it and help us, because we're in a very unique situation being on an island and needing the support. It's so anyway.
No, that is really an important reminder. What's next, Pam? What's next for you guys? Where will you live over the next couple weeks? Have you thought that far ahead, or what do the next couple weeks look like for you guys?
So we are in a rental in Kihei. As I stated earlier, I'm a realtor on Maui, and I had contacted Sunny Maui Vacations. I want to give them a little shout out because they gave me a really good deal just for this week, so we can kind of get our head straight for a minute. We have been very fortunate with some people in our community that offered us their home. They don't live here full time. So we will have a stable place to go for at least 6 months, hopefully the rest of the school year, as we get our bearings and, start the rebuilding process. So, and then that's in Kaanapali, which was not affected by the fires. So we'll be there for the school year, hopefully, and then we'll take it from there.
I know there's some other fires that are continuing to burn as well. Is that a concern for you where you are, or
Where we are
how is that
currently,
looking?
I mean, West Maui, I think they're saying it's 80% contained. I'm not even sure.
85. I think.
85.
85. The one
There's
up,
been little flare-ups, I think. There was one in Kaanapali 2 nights in a row, but that got put out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So, but there's apparently hurricanes coming again next week. So that's a little scary, but
the winds are nowhere what they were. The Kula fire was the second fire, burnt over 500 structures as well. So it was a significant fire as well.
Less than that. But.
And that one, though, appears to be under control. It has been burning, but seen more of a control burned away from housing. So we don't see much effects from where we are from any current burns.
Like where we are in Kihei, and then we were in Wailuku, which is in central Maui, it's honestly been business as usual. You'd never even know that the apocalypse is just around the mountain. So we've been lucky. A lot of our friends didn't even know really what was going on because they were not online until they still really aren't. There's like pockets of internet, from what we understand, all around West Maui. So there's still a lot of people that don't know the full scope of what's gone on, which is crazy. I mean, I'm sure now they have an idea, but.
Well, you left a lot of impression in our conversation, and one of it that we walk away with so clearly is just how fast this happened and how quick just the speed of this event. And I'm sure there's a lot for people to wrap their heads around, especially if you're even living on the island and can't even imagine that taking place. Mm-hmm. So thank you for taking the time to share your story with us. And we really look forward to staying up to date with you, mm-hmm. and hopefully lending our support as well on Smarter News so that we continue to remember the story, that we just don't move on with the next one. Yeah. And that can really happen in news. So thank you, all of you, Ellie, Kaia, Keenan, and Pam. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for telling our story.
Jenna.
Thank you so much.